In this lesson, we're going to take the product research automation that we built in a previous demo and level it up. So instead of sending product research results to an email, we're going to store them in Google Sheets so they're really easy for the team to review, compare, and reuse across the team. So the workflow is from product research to Google Sheets. Why are we using it? We're using it to store and structure product research so that teams can analyze, compare, and act on it over time. What are common uses for this type of workflow for each role? Well, product managers can use it for comparing competitors, marketing teams can use it for planning campaigns, operations teams can use it for reviewing suppliers, sales teams for tracking trends, and founders or CEOs or chairpeople for validating ideas. So the scenario is we want to go from researching an email to a shared system. In the previous lesson, we researched the top tracksuits in the USA using an API and then sent results via email. And that's useful, but emails are temporary. So what we really want is a central source of the truth that grows over time. And that can be filtered and reviewed and is accessible to multiple managers. So instead of emailing the results, we're going to store them in Google Sheets. Now, we already have a spreadsheet set up called Passion Sports Product Research. So let's take a look. So this is our sheet in Google Sheets. It's called Passion Sports Product Research. And as we can see, we've got the table here already. It's inside of the tracksuit articles tab or sheet. And then next to that, we've got another one, which is the tracksuit images sheet. So you can see both of them down here. And each one has got a table. So you can see that in the table, we've got the search query. What are the top most popular tracksuits in the USA? We've got an article title, for example, 7 best tracksuits for men. Article description, our favorite tracksuits for men. And if we scoot along a little bit, we can see we've got a link to the article here. So if I click on that and open that up, there you go. This one happens to be an Esquire. And there's some stuff in here about tracksuits or about this tracksuit. We've got a research date as well, so we can tell when this bit of research was done. We will quickly know if it's irrelevant or not. In the next tab or sheet, tracksuit images, we've got, again, the search query that ran it. And then we've got the image link to an image that came back from this query and the research date. So it's the same thing if we open that up. In fact, if we open a few of these up in a new tab, let's have a look at this last one. So that was the previous article. Here we've got an image of one of the tracksuits that we found. There's another image for a ladies one, completely different style, obviously, different colors, everything. And here we've got a completely different one. That one's pretty colorful, huh? So these are the images and the research that came back when we used Tavily. And so what we want to do is we want to generate these documents automatically now instead of sending all the research to an email. And this can just grow over time. So let's go to our workflow and you'll see exactly how we have done that. And we go to Product Research API to email, click on that. You can see we never quite completed this one, but here you can see we basically created an HTTP request, created a code node to run some code to get the results from this and change it into HTML and then send that in an email. So if we now go back, and I'm going to show you what we're about to create. So here, this is what we need to do now. So now we're going to take that same HTTP request. We're going to split the results into various items and put that in one of our sheets, which is the articles. So we're going to append that as a row in that sheet. But at the same time, we're going to split out the images and send them to a completely different sheet. And this is what we need to create. So let's go back and start this, and I'll show you exactly how we got to this. So if we go back, let's start with the product research to email. What we can do is immediately duplicate that. And let's call it Product Research API to Google Sheets. So it's good to duplicate that because now we've got a good starting point. So we can get rid of this, which was just there for demo purposes in a previous lesson. And if we now have a look at this, we still want the same HTTP request. We don't want to go to email anymore. We actually want to get rid of that. And what we do want is we want to go now to a Google Sheet. So to do that, we'll click plus. If I type in sheet, we can see that there's a Google Sheets node. Click on that and we get a range of options. Now, we don't need a trigger. What we need is an action. And we're going to choose append or update row in sheet. Now you're going to need to choose your credential. I've already set myself up with a Google account, but if you haven't got one already set up, you'll go to create new credential, keep it OAuth2, and then sign in with Google. And once you do, you'll use the Google account of your choice where you want to store your sheet. Once you've done that, click save. I'm going to close this. I've already done it. So I've chosen my Google Sheets account. We're choosing a sheet within the document. And down here it says append or update row. And we want to append a row. It gives us more flexibility later if we actually want to update it. We can come back to this same node and just change the setting. So now we're going to choose the document from a list. If you click here, it goes through all of the different sheets that I have. And we're going to choose Passion Sports Product Research in this case. So you will want to have created your sheet with all the right columns. So if I go back, you can see I've already created this. So you'll want to set this up. What I'm going to do is get rid of the rows I already have. There we go, nice and clean. So you might want to take note of these rows I've already got. It should start nice and clean so we can see when we write new content in. So now back at N8N, we're choosing a document from a list, and within the document are tabs and they're known as sheets. So we're going to choose from a list. You do have the option to choose by URL, an ID or a name. I like to just choose from list because they're already named pretty well. So we can choose from a list. And the first one we're going to do is tracksuit articles. Now, this is where we're going to map the columns of the data into these particular columns. We're going to map the data into the particular columns. But before we do that, let's go back and look at our canvas. So at the moment, it's triggering off of this because we're not passing the information in. Now, because we've got multiple rows of information going in, we actually need to split up the information that goes in here. So we won't take this trigger. And we also can't use the code node that we used in our previous lesson for turning it into HTML because we're not sending it in as HTML. They're separate rows. So we'll get rid of this. But we're still going to take the same HTTP request. So if we run this quickly, we'll see the data that's going to come out of it. So this is the data at the moment. One thing I know is that at the moment, we're set to max results 1. And that's why we've only got one result here. So I'm going to make it max results 10 and execute it again. There you go. So now we've got 4 images that came back. We've got many more results. So these are the articles that are going to go across. So what we want to do is we want to take each one of these images and each one of these results and put them in this table in the respective tab. So now, how do we do that? So we will need code. However, this is a good example of showing you how we can actually use the built-in AI features within N8N. Let's suppose you're not a developer and you still want to be able to do this. You know how to do the HTTP request because it wasn't too intensive. You know how to create a node because that's not too intensive either. Pretty straightforward for a non-technical person. But you're not sure how to split up these results to get them into this sheet. So this is where we can use AI and just tell it exactly what we want to do. So the quickest way to do that is to just go over here to the right where it says N8N AI. Click on that and literally ask the question. So this is the question I asked earlier, which was, if there are multiple results, how do I write each result in a row to the spreadsheet? So let's run that. Now this is going to think and it's going to go through a thought process to work out how to do that. And because it knows we've already got these 2 nodes, it can use the information it's already got to work out what should go in the middle to connect them and get us the result I want. This is a lot of what can be done in ChatGPT, but now with the power of AI within N8N, it actually does the work for us. There we go. The AI is finished. So let's see what it did. So I asked it, if there are multiple results, how do I write each result to a row in the spreadsheet? And it says, I can see your workflow receives multiple results from the Tavily API in the results array, but currently only the first result would be written to the sheet. You need to add a loop over items node to process each result individually. And so you can see the steps it went through, getting the node details, searching nodes, getting node details, removing a connection. It added a code node, connected the nodes. It got a node parameter, updated node parameters, and then validated the workflow. And what it says changed is it added a code node that extracts the results array from the API's response. So it's just basically a collection of all of the results it has extracted. And each result is now output as a separate item with a search query and the current date. The Google Sheets node will now append 1 row per result instead of just the first result, which was the exact problem I wanted to solve. And it says the workflow now processes all results from the Tavily API and writes each one to a separate row in your spreadsheet. The code node transforms the single API response containing multiple results into multiple items that flow through to the Google Sheets node. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything, which is great. And we can actually execute and refine. So before I do that, let's go back and have a look at what it's done. So what we've got now is we've still got the HTTP request and we've still got the append row. But if we click inside, if we look here, we've got actually a new node called extract results array. Let's double click on that. And here's the code. So we can see the import. In the import, we've got the query, and the important things are we've got images and results. And images is a bunch of different images, the 4 images I showed you earlier. And results is a bunch of different results. You can see everything up to 10 results we'll get back because I set a limit at 10. And there they are. We happen to have got 9. And what we want to do in this case is we want to pick each result out and we want to append it as a row to our Google Doc. So what this code does, I won't go into too much detail, but essentially it grabs the input and it finds the results, which is this, and it loops around those results, pulling out various bits of information that we need, which is the title, content, URL, and research date. And it essentially will store that in a way within this JSON object that allows us to pull it out row by row and append it into our Google Sheet. So if we execute this, we'll see the output here. So on the right hand side, now we can see the output is essentially a number of rows, and each row is a result from the left. It's pulling out just the results at the moment because that's what I asked it to do over here. And so now we've got a different row of information, and you can see it's split up with the right columns that are going to go into our spreadsheet, which is excellent. So now the way to test that out is if we go into our append row sheet, you can see that it's already got all of the right information. It's pulled the right information. So we've got a search query pulled out from the left here. So that's going to be what are the top most popular tracksuits. And we've got an article title, which is pulled from here. And this is just one result, an example of one result. So it says the 11 best tracksuits. The article description, which is the long description in this content element here. The URL, which is the URL to the article. And the research date, which is pulled out and put here. So now we've got all of the information in a form that can go directly into our spreadsheet. So let's execute that step and make sure it actually does go into the right sheet. There you go. So according to the output, it's appended that row into our sheet. Now the only way to see is to go to our sheet and have a look. And there you go, as if by magic. There are the rows there, 9 rows, pasted, put into our sheet simply by our automation.